So, first of all, to kick us off today, we have Jodi Hall, which I'm so excited to hear and be part of this session as well, Jodi. Jodi is CEO and president of the Mortgage Collaborative. For those of you who don't know, TMC is the nation's largest independent cooperative network of mortgage lenders and one of the most recognized, she is one of the most recognized voices driving innovation and leadership in the mortgage industry. Jodi has almost 30 years experience in mortgage banking, and she began by building and scaling mortgage companies from the ground up. Jodi and I worked together for a short time in our past careers, and so I have seen her in action as she does such a wonderful job in re-engineering and coming in with new ideas. So I'm so excited for all of you to be able to learn from her today. She's bringing you an open forum on leadership, technology, and the future of mortgages. And she just told us to come ready to engage. So, Jodi, I think we're ready. Go for it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alice. It's very nice to see you. And I think a great operations practitioner in your own right. And now you've passed the baton on to some of the others of us. So thank you for your leadership in the industry over the years. Very much look up to you and I've seen you support the industry, which is extremely important to me. So thank you. Before we get into some polling, we're going to give you some polling questions. I think Will has that set up so that you all can direct what we talk about. So if you can rank those in order, and we'll go of what you would like to hear, then we will go through those. Also, I know we're going to give you a lot of tasks here in the beginning, but you'll be able to settle in and drink your coffee and listen. If you also could drop in the chat what your positions are. So I'm not familiar with the attendees, so I'd love to know what your roles are and the organizations that you serve. While we're having the polls come in, while you're answering the poll questions, just a brief background. Alice mentioned that I grew mortgage companies, so I started my career at a very low level in the subprime market. So I was an account manager, didn't have any clue what mortgage meant. And walked in and was an account manager, which is equivalent to a processor on the wholesale side, and was processing loans. And I saw underwriters underwriting loans. So imagine 3 months into my career and like, hey, can I be an underwriter? And they gave me the opportunity to go through underwriting training. And they were like, whoever the top students are coming out of underwriting training, they're the ones that are going to get the next underwriting positions. And I was fortunate enough to be top of the class and moved into underwriting, then into supervisor, which oversaw account managers and underwriters up until the point that the loan got to closing, and passed that off, and then worked my way up to regional manager, which meant that I oversaw sales and operations for the Southeast. After the subprime crash, I built an operations center for Chase in Denver, Colorado. There were no jobs in Ohio, and I took an opportunity to take the leap of faith and go wherever the very first operations job was in mortgage, and went to Denver, Colorado. Jen, you have your hand up. Are you having difficulty?
It seems like it might not just be, but because we're hosts and panelists, we can't vote.
Oh, okay. You just want to drop in. You guys want to just drop in the chat like what your top one is, and we'll go that direction. Will you show them the options again, please? Or if you want to use your phone and the QR code. However technologically advanced you feel today. So I worked at Chase. I was coming back to Ohio they were opening an operations center in Cleveland, Ohio, and I was commuting as a subject matter expert and opening that ops center. And my friends and family were in Ohio, and I was in Denver on the weekends and in Ohio during the week. So I transferred back to Ohio with Chase. And then when Cross Country Mortgage moved from being a broker to a lender, shortly after that time, they hired their first operations manager. And that's how I entered into the independent mortgage banker world when Cross Country Mortgage was very small. My last 2.5 years there, I was there from 2013 to 2018. I was the COO. I started my own business after cross country consulting on operational efficiency and workflow. And I was consulting with nationwide mortgage bankers on Long Island, and they convinced me to come on full time as they were in growth mode and they wanted to build. So they convinced me to come on full time as their president. I commuted from Cleveland to Long Island on a weekly basis. You want to talk about a fish out of water? I am a country girl from a town of 250 people. There was not a stoplight. Everyone says you're from a one stoplight town. And it's like, nope, we had a stop sign that everybody chose to roll through because there was never anyone there. So I was the president of Nationwide Mortgage Bankers for 4 years. And after the pandemic, my priorities changed and I didn't want to live life on the road. So I went back to consulting and I moved to a horse farm that we had built in southeastern Ohio near where I grew up. And I've been living here for nearly 3 years. And then I took over at the Mortgage Collaborative in February of 2025. So that's my background. All right, so I'm seeing passion and purpose a lot. So we'll dive into that one first. And then biggest bet is next. So this is good stuff. When I graduated from college, Maya Angelou, my senior year of college, Maya Angelou, the poet, came and spoke at the university. And the thing that stuck out in my brain from her conversation, because I was a college student who, when I reached my sophomore year, the end of my sophomore year, the Marietta College came to me, the career counselors came to me, and they're like, listen, you got to choose a major. And I was like, I have no idea what I want to do. And I said, what do I have the most credits in? And they're like, psychology. I go, all right, I'll be a psychology major. And that's how I chose my major in college. And very much my career has been like that. But Maya Angelou spoke and said, the most interesting people in life are those who do not know what they want to do. And maybe it was because it was self-fulfilling and made me feel better about that I had no direction in life or knew what I wanted to be. But that has always stuck with me. And I don't think I realized my what until much later in my career. And it really was at the tail end when I was the president of Nationwide Mortgage Bankers. I knew who, and I think that there needs to be like a very distinguishing aspect between what versus who. I knew that the who I wanted to be was a person that was respected in the industry. I wanted to be a servant leader. I wanted to give back to the industry, but I didn't exactly know what I wanted to do. So as I, was at the tail end at Nationwide Mortgage Bankers, things started to click. And I think it has to do with age and perspective and experience that you really learn what your passion is. And I also knew that I loved developing leaders. And probably when I look back on my career, my greatest achievements were never the production aspect of it. It was never, growing Cross Country Mortgage from, I think there were 175 employees when I started, and there were 2,200 when I left. Similar story at Nationwide Mortgage Bankers. They did 400 million in production the year that I started, and we hit 3 billion in 3 years. Now, 2021 definitely helped that and the production, but I never cared as much about that as I cared about being able to develop my succession plan and develop my leaders so that when I stepped away, even if that was for the weekend to come home to Cleveland and to go back to New York, but that I was able to step away and the business would be able to continue to function. I never cared about someone like outworking me or replacing me, because it was more about making sure that there were leaders in place that the business could continue to function when I left. I still have employees that I hired at Cross Country Mortgage that are in higher positions, and it makes my heart smile that I was able to play a small part in their career development for them to be able to continue to function and thrive in their careers. Same at Nationwide Mortgage Bankers and throughout my career. The other thing that I realized was no one's going to remember how many loans you closed. I was talking to Dustin Shepard at American Pacific Mortgage yesterday, and he quoted this back to me because this is something that I've been saying for years. And he's like, really, like, it doesn't like, where you reach a point in your career where you want to give back and you want to be able to not only have the next level of leaders that will come into place, but you want to leave an impact. And the Mortgage Collaborative gives me an opportunity not just to, I was single lender through my career and felt like I had an impact on that company, where the Mortgage Collaborative gives me the opportunity to have an impact on 200 lender members who we serve and 70 some preferred partners that are vendors in our network. And from that, it just grows and it continues to expand, and we have the flywheel effect. And most of in my consulting and also at the Mortgage Collaborative, a lot of areas that I'm able to help our lenders, they have the same question: how do we grow? And I will get into the operational aspect of that as we answer the next question. So my passion is to leave a lasting impact on the industry by helping other lenders succeed and vendors succeed in the industry, and to also help build the next generation of leaders who will take over. If you have seen LinkedIn or you have seen my website, you'll see that I hope that I'm sitting on my porch of the barn sipping bourbon in the not too distant future, and all of you are the ones that are taking my passion forward in the industry and running it and leaving an impact on it. Any questions on the passion part? All right, biggest bet. We're going to get into operations. I've always been a risk taker, and I have always been very interested in technology. Even early on in my career, I would look at technology and be willing to be the first adopter of that technology, which can be a very scary space. Probably the most recent from that aspect is when I was at Nationwide Mortgage Bankers, there is a emerging, they don't call themselves an LOS, but we'll call it an LOS. They choose to call themselves a performance optimization platform because they're POS, LOS with all of the pieces built in technology. And we were the first mortgage company to interact with them. The name of the company is Wilco. And they are an emerging LOS in the industry, and that has been my path. So I look at a significant amount of technology and always have been extremely curious about how we can apply technology to improve efficiency, to enhance people's positions, not replace people in their positions. Let the technology take care of the things that don't require emotional intelligence and human interaction, so that we can spend more time in being able to have that human interaction and have a lasting impact on our clients. And for all of you, for those of you who said that you are in operations roles. I really believe that if you are in a support function, not only is the borrower your client, but the loan officer assistant, the divisional sales managers, they are your clients because you can help them function better in their jobs. So this was the biggest bet that I took in my career. So in 2021, when there was so much business coming in the door because interest rates were so low. And I don't know if you all were in the industry at that time, but underwriting turn times it was not, if you were 7 days or less, you were really cranking. I heard horror stories that loans would sit in underwriting over 20 days at some mortgage lenders. And on the correspondent side, waiting for loans to be purchased, your loans were sitting on warehouse lines for 45, 60 days because it was taking over a month for anyone to actually review that. So during that time, the pandemic was the biggest emotional roller coaster because you were dealing with, from a cap markets perspective, we used to do about 20 million loans, non-QM loans a month. And the first people to pull out during the pandemic were the non-QM investors, those who had done non-delegated correspondent that typically they were sitting on the warehouse line for 3 to 5 days before they were purchased because they fully underwrote the loans. All of a sudden, they're like, we're not buying them. And you're like, well, wait a second, I don't have another takeout. And no one else would take on the risk if they hadn't underwritten the loans. So it was a roller coaster of emotion. It was, worried about all of the employees being healthy, being able to do their jobs. It's a very scary time. And our underwriting turn times had expanded to 7 days. And I was like, this just doesn't feel right. At the same time, we were trying to grow the organization, and we had hired divisional recruiters to go out and to recruit, to do mergers and acquisitions, to acquire companies, to bring on large divisions to come into the company. And I went to the owner of Nationwide Mortgage Bankers and I said, I have a plan. And usually when I said I have a plan, it was like, oh boy, here we go. What's Jodi's big, hairy, audacious idea? I go, we're going to stop hiring sales. He's like, you're going to what? I go, we're going to put all of our recruiters and our sales leadership that is recruiting, we're going to put them on ice. He's like, what do you mean? And I said, it's not fair to our existing employees to stretch out turn times. And there's enough production that is here that this might be the greatest retention that we do for our employees. And he's like, all right, let's do it. And we stopped growing. We did not hire another loan officer. We pivoted our focus to our existing loan officers, our existing business, and being able to improve our cycle times on the underwriting side. And we did that for about 6 months. And our underwriting times, we got down to 3 days in underwriting, partially because we had applied some technology that was able to do some of the quality assurance testing. We put some processes in place that there are minimum requirements for processors to submit the loans. And the other thing that we did for our purchase business is we did an underwritten pre-approval that the processors were able to, we gave them the authority on conventional loans to issue those underwritten pre-approvals because we had the technology to underwrite the income. So 80% of the loans, we felt confident on the income calculations just from using technology. We allowed the processors to issue those underwritten pre-approvals. And then the 20% that we felt were risky or had layered risk, then we would elevate those to an underwriter, but they were given preferential treatment. So 2 risky things in that. Go tell the owner of a mortgage company that you're going to halt growth. so that you really can reestablish your operations practices to better serve your clients. Remember, your clients being your sales team and your customers. And what happened was it ignited our growth because we were able to go and pick off loans from other lenders because we marketed the heck out of a 3-day underwrite, which was absolutely uncommon in the industry at that time. Now, we still had to deal with on the back end for the correspondent investors. We had to deal with some of the delays on the warehouse line. We had our Fannie and Freddie approvals at that time, so we chose to portfolio most of our conventional loans, and then we didn't yet have our Ginnie Mae approval. But I definitely would say that that was my biggest bet in my career. And I was excited that the owner of the company had the faith in me. And he still tells that story today because it was a commitment to the existing employees to take care of them and to take care of their clients in a time that many lenders were just trying to gobble up production so that they could say that they had the most loans, they closed the most loans. Units and volume were never what our passion was. Being able to serve our company and serve our industry was what led us up to that point. Any questions on that one? All right, I'm looking through. What's next? What do you want to talk about next? Let's talk about technology, and then you guys throw in the chat what you want to move on to. So technology. I have been extremely passionate about technology, and it led me to, in my consulting company 3 years ago, when I made the move from Nationwide Mortgage Bankers back to my consulting company, a venture capital company reached out to me and they're like, listen, we have a fund that invests in technology, but we really need someone who understands the technology space from the lending side of things. We want you to research technology that we're looking at investing in and tell us, give us advice on whether we should invest in that technology, how it fits in, what are the overlaps that we could have, different technologies working together. We want it all in our investment portfolio. What a fun job. So from a person who had run operations and worked on, we talked about the life cycles of a loan. I believe there are 3 huge life cycles of a loan. The first being from your lead, so from an inquiry through the point of sale up until the point of application. Then I believe it's application through really closing. You could argue funding, and then probably what I feel is the most important, or what I learned over the years, because it drives so much, is that from funding all the way up until post-closing through, and if you're servicing, retaining the servicing. So from the servicing for that perspective and looking at technology, it was about what have I seen and what have been my greatest hurdles. But when they were looking at investing in a technology, I had to research the entire segment. So and through that process, I became an investor in Candor, which is an AI underwriting company, and I served on the board at Candor. But leading up to that, I had to research all of the AI underwriting companies that would compete with Candor and find what the nuances of each one of them were, and then also look for areas that Candor could expand into, developing relationships with QC companies, getting Fannie and Freddie approval to underwrite income and assets. So being able to take the the hurdles or the problems that I saw in operational inefficiency throughout my career and looking for solutions, I was able to apply that so that we were able to layer that technology. Continue to be deeply involved with the venture capital space and also bringing technology to the forefront of the industry. The Mortgage Collaborative did run a tech day as part. We have 2 conferences a year, and we'd run a tech day where we would have 6 emerging technology companies compete, and they would compete for either investment through our tech fund, or and also would compete for Housing Wire. Did a media package that would help them get exposure. And we worked as an accelerator for those technology companies. Our latest winner in Boston in September was a company called Nestment. And they help home buyers work together so that multiple individuals can buy duplexes, quads in very expensive areas, but they help put the financing together in connection with the lender so that it helps solve the affordability crisis. And then they educate the buyers so that they can then move them into that becomes a rental, that becomes a source of income. So then they can afford to purchase single family homes separately. They were the most recent winner, but we work as an accelerator in that we help them with legal advice, we help them with product market fit, we help them with connecting them with the right other vendors that they need to help run their technology, and also for people that can do resell or help them in their sales process. We have spun that off, and we are doing a standalone event, which is August 12th and the 13th, where we're going to do that ×3. So it's called the ACT Tech Summit, which stands for Accelerating Collaborative Transformation. And we'll have 15 companies competing in that same capacity. One of the interesting things that we do is we actually send the presenters after they have completed the act. We send them into the audience with lenders and VCs, and they give them immediate feedback so that they can start to develop and to learn. So uber excited about that. Because of that, I probably look at, on average, 12 emerging technology companies a week. So definitely have a pulse on what is out there, what is upcoming, and it's really amazing to see the speed at which companies are developing. And it's creating a lot of overlap, because where you used to have to go to, you would have a point solution. So you have to have 57 vendors to be able to originate a loan, where a lot of the companies are expanding because AI is developing so quickly that they're just adding product on. So they're talking to their lenders, and the lenders are saying, hey, can you also do this that is adjacent to what it is? And they're building it, and they're able to build it very quickly and efficiently and be able to apply it. So we've seen a significant amount of consolidation from lenders, where a lot of the technology that was put in place in 21 and 22, just to try, we're trying everything just to get through the production bubble. We've seen that get ripped out over the last couple of years, and people really consolidating the number of vendors that they work with to be able to originate a loan. Any questions on the technology space? All right, win losses. Oh, did someone speak up? It might have just been mic feedback. All right, biggest win losses and lessons. All right, so how much time do we have, Alice? Are we till 9:15, 9:30?
You're till 9:15.
Okay. All right. So as I told you, my career, I started like I didn't know anything. I was a graduate student at John Carroll University, and I was a graduate assistant. I made $400 a month. And I had to live in the upstairs of my friend's dad's house in Maple Heights, Ohio. And there was a career fair going on, and I was like, I got to make more than $400 a month. So I went to the career fair. That's how I started in the mortgage industry. But started very green, knew nothing. I have a psychology undergrad degree. My first job out of college was at Muskingum Behavioral Health, and my job was to go into the county jail and city jail and coach inmates on substance abuse. So very far out of like my knowledge, which I think played very well in the mortgage industry, because I think I probably used that psychology degree from understanding people more than I have used any business education that I have. But I was very green and I didn't know anything. And I was at Novastar Mortgage in the subprime market. I had worked up to the regional manager, so I oversaw sales and operations in the Northeast or in the Southeast United States. So I covered North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, and Florida. I spent most of my time in Florida because Miami and Fort Lauderdale were big non-QM hubs, significant amount of business. And because I had underwritten before, I used to have the brokers show up. We would rent out a room at a hotel, a conference space, and brokers would bring their paper files in and I would underwrite them. And we evolved so much. So the brokers would run back to their shops and meet their clients, and they would get anything that was missing and they'd bring it back and be like, can you clear this to close? We'd clear it to close. We would fax the documents to Cleveland, Ohio, and get the closers to draw the closing packages, overnight them so they were signing. We evolved. Our technology was amazing. We evolved to, I gave them a checklist. I said, don't show up here without this information, and I'll tell you what, I'm going to bring a closer with me. So we started bringing a closer with us, and so we evolved from getting incomplete files to getting complete files. We'd underwrite them and clear to close them on the spot, and we would hand it over to the closer, and the closer would sit there and would draw the closing package. We would print it out there at the hotel. They would bring clients into the hotel space and sign then and there. Like, it was the most revolutionary underwriting in subprime. And I had been extremely successful there. And as the subprime market started to diminish, they were talking about doing away with a layer of management. So they were doing away with the regional managers. There were 3 of us that worked out of the Ohio office. And there was another West Coast division, but they were going to go from 3 regional managers to 1 regional manager, and then the other 2 had the option to move back into supervisor positions. We had to interview for those positions. And I thought, my region has outperformed everyone along the way. We have put processes in place to be as efficient as we could. I had account managers that were closing over 100 loans, and no other region was doing that. We were an oiled machine, well connected, and very tight. Like, the salespeople worked really well with operations people. I'm like, there's no chance I don't get this regional position. And I was extremely cocky about it and had no self-awareness as to what I really wanted to do, what my passion was, and that I truly was a servant leader. None of that resonated with me at the time. I was young in my career. I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have someone that I could go back to. I was cocky as all get out. And it came to the day that the chief operating officer walked into my office and said, I'm not giving you the regional position. I'll offer you a supervisor position. I was like, well, whose role am I going to take? And he said, you're going to have to interview. We're going to go through an interview process on the supervisor. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. And I also didn't want to replace the supervisors I have. And unfortunately, my grandmother died the same day that I got this information. And I was like, hey, I got to go home and like try to figure this out. And I'll like come back and we'll figure something out. I was gone for about a week and I was like, can I just underwrite? I'll just underwrite. Because I'm not going to go through this process. I literally had climbed the ladder very quickly, but because of my cockiness and inability to realize what my value was and why I was there, I fell down that ladder, hit my chin on every rung, it crushed my ego, it crushed my spirit. But it is something that I have often looked back on, and it was like a tremendous growth opportunity for me to know that it wasn't about me. And that's something that is very difficult. It doesn't matter how many books you read or how many leadership trainings that you go through, until you're self-aware enough to know it's not about you, you're not going to be successful. And if you are successful, it's going to be in title only and not from a fulfillment perspective. Oh, wins, losses, go Blue Streaks. I love it. Um, got biggest bets. Will, what are our other options? I'll hit one more.
Technology question.
Yes.
What do you think the biggest game changer from what you are seeing out there today? What do you think is going to change the game the most of what you see right now of new
Yeah,
technology?
yeah, it's a really scary space. Um, the most recent technology that I have seen it's going to change something that you would never think of. And Todd, what's your role?
I'm a loan officer.
All right, you're gonna love this. Well, your company might not love this. All right. Does everyone know what the NCAA transfer portal is? So, all right. So there's a technology that is on the edge of being done. It's in pilot currently. There are a few lenders who are participating, and we're trying to move loan officers into this. But there's a technology that's been created to create the transfer portal for loan officers. So as opposed, and I think that it's going to transform the recruiting game in mortgage, because it's going to move from the recruiter having control to the loan officer being in control. So the loan officers it's like personality testing. It's Match.com, or I don't know what the most recent like dating apps are, but it essentially takes the way in which the loan officer, so it's not just about production and units, about what your objectives are. What are the things that you need out of an employer, out of a lender? And then it takes the profiles of the lenders who are participating, and it's completely anonymous. And then at the end of the day, if you decide that you want to talk to some people, you're matched with lenders, and then you start having those conversations. And I definitely think that that's going to change the way in which recruiting is done, and the movement of loan officers will be in the future. So that's one of them. And the name of that company is mLoop, but it was developed out of a lender. So it was the head of marketing at a lender. She went out on her own and developed it. So I'm really excited about that one. And then Nestment has a really compelling product. They were the winners of the tech fund. Those companies that are focusing on like AI and developing AI, it's just such a crowded space and convoluted. It's very difficult to be able to weed out the winners and losers there. So I think right now, those companies that are doing something different and aren't just going after, the how do I replace a loan setup with automation? How do I replace underwriting is big. So our our lender members are, one of their key focuses is on AI underwriting. So one of the things that we're doing at the Tech Summit is we're having an AI underwriting live RFP. So the AI underwriting companies are going to underwrite a live file in front of lenders, allow the lenders to ask questions about the output. We'll bring all of the AI underwriting companies back to the main stage, and we'll ask them RFP questions that you would ask in choosing technology. That's a space that most lenders are really interested in, so that they're only looking at, the underwriters are only looking at the government loans and a percentage of the higher risk conventional loans. But those are Nestment and mLoop right now are super interesting because they're taking a different take, and they're not trying to compete in these spaces that AI is taking over and being developed every 2 weeks, and it's old 2 weeks later.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, we'll finish up. I think I can do it in 4 minutes. On life cycle mastery, so I mentioned before 3 life cycles of a loan, and I also think that this is the biggest area that AI can be a game changer. So once the loan closes, I think that where you fund loans on your warehouse lines can be managed by AI. I don't know if you've ever seen an Excel spreadsheet where where the CFO is trying to figure out where you should be funding loans based on what the warehouse fees are. But there's some technology that is in place. OptiFunder is a preferred partner of the Mortgage Collaborative, and one that does this really well, and that they help on your warehouse line execution so that you're strategically placing loans on the right warehouse lines. And then where the biggest leakage is in the industry, and that most people aren't watching, because the mortgage industry evolved out of loan officers. Owners of companies are loan officers, and the loan officer mentality very much is, once that loan signs and funds, I'm done. And so it hasn't been a focus over the years, and there's a tremendous amount of leakage in that post-closing process. At Nationwide Mortgage Bankers, we started monitoring. We had a BI platform that we built, and we were monitoring the leakage. So that was the post-close expense that you have from extensions or exceptions that you don't meet in time. It was execution price. Could we get one price someplace, but someone put it the wrong place because of underwriting guidelines? And we were over $100,000 in leakage in a month. And we started focusing on it to bring down that cost. And we got down just in 18 months. I'm like, we're going to be $3,000 or less. And that was, when we were funding around $3 billion worth of loans. I don't know how many units that is, probably around 9,000 units. We have pretty big loan sizes. But we were able to drive down our leakage to $3,000 or less. Things happen, things get missed. We're never going to be perfect. But that area, trailing docs, oh my God, why is it such a screwed up process? Why is it so painful? And why do we have to pay Wells Fargo $250 every time we go past 120 days because someone forgot to check the report to see if the trailing docs had been gone? So I got tired of that and put some automated processes in place to monitor. And it's such a manual, convoluted process, especially if you're not doing e-closings where you can quickly transfer that so you don't get those trailing docs. But that entire area is a huge opportunity to gain efficiency. And it also dictates what you do with your workflow upstream. And it can start as early in that process as lead generation up until application. What happens there and how clean the file is if you're monitoring it, can impact what your post-closing leakage is. So that's why I believe that post-closing cycle from the time that the loan funds all the way through interim servicing and servicing is a huge opportunity to apply technology to be able to take the redundancy out. I mean, why do we still go to a portal, print out a STIP sheet for a correspondent investor, and sit there and start calling and checking off on a paper file once we've received those conditions to send back? It's a very broken process and it's ripe for the picking.